Namaste and welcome to Satsang this evening here. So Satsang is, as always, for the direct and experiential realization of who we really are. So deeper than a thought process, deeper even than an insight or an epiphany, although those happen, of course, a permanent and stable and effortless living as the infinite self that we really are. In truth, we are not a separate being. We're not separate to anyone else or anything else. There is only one being appearing as the cosmos, the whole universe, appearing to take an infinite number of shapes. And Satsang is really for the direct understanding, which is not something that comes and goes. It comes and it comes and it comes, and each time it comes, we see it clearer and deeper and deeper. And then we find that our old perspective of who we thought we were is dissolving, melting away, being undone. And that's where we gather together like this. This has happened for thousands and thousands. As long as there have been people, there's been some form of Satsang happening. And in each generation, there is this call for a certain number of beings, and that is increasing to come to an understanding experientially. So you're living as that. You're just going about your everyday life, doing what you would have done before, but you're doing it from this place of utter stillness and quietness. And the mind is just getting emptier and emptier, not by force, just because you're beginning to realize deeper and deeper that what the mind spends so much time thinking about actually isn't there in the way that we think. There isn't really a universe that we're part of, but separate to. We're not separate to all these other beings that we perceive. There is only one of us here. The same one is talking as is listening. Later, the same one will be asking questions and answering questions. It's all the same one being. So from time to time, when it wants to wake up to its real nature, it feels drawn, this infinite being, drawn to Satsang and drawn to some other body-mind vehicle that's already realized that truth and can guide us into a deeper seeing, just as I needed to have as well. So why do we, even when we have seen who we really are, when we're beginning to experience a little bit of peace, whether you've done that yet or not, what we're going to do here in this session is applicable to wherever you're at in your own awakening journey. We're not turning into the infinite self. We're actually realizing that we've always been completely alone, utterly alone, but as the everywhereness. That which is everywhere can only ever be alone, because that's all there is. There's just one being. And far from that being lonely, of course, our mind thinks it will be. The actual experience of that is everyone becomes your best friend. Some of them you love from a distance because they might be not as clearly seeing who they are and who you are. And they might be still exhibiting behaviors that you prefer not to experience. But there is a deep and rich and intimate love that comes for all of creation when you recognize it as your very own self everywhere you look. For the rest of forever, which is a really long time, all you're ever going to encounter is your own self, you in disguise, or Shiva, or Christ, or whichever great sage you feel aligned to. That's the only thing. Everywhere you look, the Buddha, absolutely everywhere, also known as you. So this illusion, though, that we are separate to, we're a person, that the body and the mind is all we are, and that when they're gone, we're gone, that illusion is very pervasive, and it continues for a while, even after we've really begun to see deeply. It did for me. I had to look and see and see and see, look and not find a separate being over and over again. And gradually the scales began to tip. They got faster towards the end. I've looked, I can't find this person called Helen. I find a body and a mind, some thoughts and emotions, desires and memories and all of that. But is that actually the same as a separate someone? Can I really say honestly that this is all I am? And something began to shift. It's not like I had any huge epiphanies or aha moments, some of those along the way, but mainly it was just in the small but profound ways. So an emotion arises inside and I can't resist it anymore. It passes very quickly and easily. A desire pops up and it tends to show up in the world, tends to manifest faster and faster. Resistance comes up and you can't resist it or judge that resistance. It just comes up and then it goes. So all of this is just kind of my way of saying it's really, really a natural and normal but very beautiful thing, awakening. And the next stage in our evolution as a species is to come to this experiential understanding. So what can we do today, now, here, in this time we have together? What can we look at that's really going to make a difference? Something that you can take into the rest of your life and begin to apply and see some profound results. And if you look at human beings, they are the only species that have the capacity, at least on this planet, to recognize the truth of who they really are. And yet, they are the only species that has the capacity to suffer mentally, psychologically. Why is that? It's this faculty of thought, of mind, this developed mind or intellect that other species don't seem to have, to such an extent at least. Capacity to weigh and discern opposites, to choose one and discard another. All of that is really useful in the world. But actually, towards the end of our awakening, it's going to become the main issue that we're ready to let go of, the main challenge. How do we do that then? Well, for human beings, we've got so used to experiencing our world, our family, our co-workers, even our awakening, ourselves, through the world of thoughts. How do we step away from that world of thoughts? Because we can't experience actual reality of our infinite self and experience what we think reality is at the same time. We have to pick one or the other. And of course, we're here in satsang because whether we realize it or not, we've picked reality. We want to experience reality. We don't want to continue to experience the world filtered through our thoughts about what is, because that diminishes our joy, our peace. In fact, not only diminishes it, it'll seem to be utterly absent. No joy, no peace, no love, no safety, no self-respect, and all of that. So we're going to do a little experiment that you can follow along with, and hopefully it'll show you a very simple way to move away from the mind. And not because mind is wrong. We need to go into this looking at our mind as if it is just an outdated way of perceiving reality. So you've been wearing these spectacles that have a certain color, and you really want to experience everything looks that color. So we have these yellow spectacles, and everything that you perceive looks yellow. But you really want to see what everything actually looks like now, without those spectacles on. How do we do that? There's a curiosity and intense urge to actually experience reality. There might be some fear as well, as there was for me. As much as I wanted to direct experience of who I really was, I was also terrified of it. So if that's how you're feeling, that's totally normal, because although it is reality, we're not used to experiencing it, are we? We're used to experiencing what we think is happening, who we think we are. Human beings have come to experience their entire world, what we perceive through our senses, and that becomes so linked with a thought and a name or a label about what it is we're perceiving. So most human beings have learned that when we look at any object at all in the external world, that automatically, unconsciously, a thought label is given to that thing. So we look at our sister, we look at a tree, we look at a thought, we look at anything at all, and the label is automatically stamped onto the experience. So much so that we don't even realize we're doing that. They become one and the same. So I don't know what it is to actually look at a tree without calling it a tree. And do I actually ever then get to experience the tree? Or am I experiencing what I think about the tree? Of course, this may not be such a negative thing. I might have some really nice memories of trees. But if I experience an emotion or a thought or another human being, the label that I stamp on that may be automatically negative, because our mind sifts and sorts through things that it encounters and labels them good and bad, wanted, not wanted. So even if we experience something neutral and open, we might be automatically stamping it with bad. So some vibration arises inside us and mind says, oh, that's fear. I don't like that. I don't want it. Have we ever really experienced that fear without that label? And are we cognizant that we're stamping a label on and giving everything that we experience a name, a thought constructed name, and that name takes precedence over the actual experience if we do that? And shockingly for me, I came to a point where I realized I'd never experienced myself or anyone else or anything else directly. In the very moment I became aware that I was filtering reality through my mind, I got this intense, burning desire to experience actual reality. Like I had to know what it was then. What's it like to perceive without thoughts? And that's what I want to do tonight here on this session. So we're just going to take 10 or 15 minutes to really do this. And you can start off in an easier way if you just look at the objects, look at the room that you're sitting in. But I want you to look at them as if you've never seen them before, as if they're brand new to you, as if there's no memories attached to them, as if there is no name. You've forgotten the names of everything. And just taking a moment now to scan the room around you. Some things will have more memories attached than others, but just experiencing it as if you had never seen it before. As if I just brought you this thing and put it down in front of you and you said, what's that? And I said, I don't know. Like you've never experienced it before, brand new, completely fresh. Just taking a moment. This may seem like a really weird thing to do, but for the first time, perhaps, we're experiencing this pure state of not knowing, not already having stamped something with a label. And it may bring up some uncomfortableness. It may bring up some fear. If it does, just don't know what fear is either. Just stepping away from all the mental concepts are still there, the names if we need them, but just for this time. And if you want to kind of step this up, you can look at your own body, but forget the name body and forget your name too. So forget Helen for me. I have no clue what this thing is. It's here. But I don't know what it is at all. And we begin to experience that what we're actually experiencing through our senses are just shapes, always seeing and hearing and feeling as shapes or vibrations. And it is the name we give it that condenses it into a heavier experience. And you can take a moment to perceive yourself without thoughts. What do you know about yourself if you don't name yourself with all the usual labels? So your actual name, put it aside for a minute. We've already set aside the label, the name, body. Let's set aside worthy or unworthy, awakened or unawakened. Let's set aside the label of thoughts. So things might be happening in here, but we have no idea what they are. Because without these labels, names, also goes wanted and not wanted, good and bad. Also goes freedom and bondage too. Liberation and bondage are also gone in this. Just imagining going about your whole life, not knowing what anything is before you encounter it, and actually experiencing it in that moment afresh completely. Can you even function like this? Yeah, of course you can. Mind won't agree, but you're doing it right now, aren't you? So don't know who I am, don't know who you are. Forget my name, forget your name. Forget the word Zoom, forget satsang, forget all of that stuff. And just directly experience this moment. So there's just your senses, what your senses are perceiving, and this moment. There's no need to put a name on anything. And this really, when we begin to allow this to be our habitual way of encountering ourselves and our life, we notice this kind of peace and contentment that deepens into a stillness. Can you live your whole life not knowing what anything is? Can you go to work like this? Can you raise your kids like this? Feeling what it feels like in your body to just not know anything at all. Just separating the names from the actual experience of this moment. Allowing yourself to rest here. So just taking this moment, whenever a thought pops up in your mind, just don't know what that thought is. Meet it with a curiosity. As if I'd just given you something that you'd never tasted or touched before, experienced. almost like being a very young child, deeply curious about the world. And as you do this, you begin to see that you can experience reality directly. That there is just the senses perceiving, feeding back vibration, information to our senses, to our mind, excuse me. And that mind doesn't have to form a concept about what we're experiencing. We've just come to somehow prefer experiencing our thoughts, and we're just switching over now in satsang to the direct experience. Again, just taking a moment to experience yourself. You're here right now. We're here together. And we don't have to put any concepts here. What's your experience of yourself when you don't think about yourself? Is there anything that you can experience that you need to label? Or can you move through your whole life like this? Is it really the labeling, the stamping of name and form onto everything that's been running your life anyway? Or is there not some power behind all of this? Do you know anything about yourself like this? And do you need to know anything about yourself like this? Just like this. Just completely already here and free, conscious, aware. No thought definitions at all. As if you were experiencing this moment for the first time, experiencing your environment for the first time, experiencing your body for the first time. It's brand new, just being given to you. And although our mind may say that this is overly simplistic, it kind of is. Simple things are the most powerful. Who are you without a history? Without a thought constructed future to fear or dread? Is it an avoidance? Or is it a valuing of what is real, which is here and now, right now? When those future moments come anyway, there will be experience now, right now. Let's just take a few more moments just to perceive our experience, perceive ourselves, without any need to put any names on it, any categories, any good or bad, or all of that stuff. You might begin to notice this stillness, this silence that's already here, that really is who you are. Let's not even call it stillness or silence. Let's not know anything about that either. Something is here. What if you just became a giant question mark? What if you already are this unknown? It's not so scary here, is it? What you think you know is cheap compared to this. There's nothing in the world of thoughts that's worth losing this for. You can't lose it, but you can cover it over by experiencing your thoughts. In any moment, we can choose to forget everything. Doesn't mean thoughts necessarily stop. It just means I don't want to experience reality through them. I want to experience reality. What do you need here like this? Are you suffering here like this? Does this have to be a momentary experience? Or can it become a habit? Whenever I begin to pick up names again, I can just set them down. Come back to reality directly. Having forgotten so many names that we can't even remember what we've forgotten, and we don't want to. One more moment, one more minute. Hit the snooze on the mind and just stay here with me, not knowing anything about anything. So I'm going to read some questions that have been sent in, and I'll take up to 3 questions here online as well. I'll go to these questions first. So this one says, Dear Helen, about a year ago, I started to wake up, and the journey has completely taken over my life. After a series of insights, I went through a 5 months long honeymoon period before spending the next half a year on emotion and shadow work, illuminating and then embracing identifications and stories one by one. For the last month, I have been experiencing more and more non-separation. Then just a few days ago, I suddenly saw that I am completely alone. I am completely alone because there is no other. This shock realization that myself and everyone I love doesn't exist, but also the birth of immense joy at my own divinity, and the understanding that I am not a small, separate self, that I am everything, and I am the divine. What is also occurring is that any remnant of separation is extremely painful. Old irritations are resurfacing, and I find myself extremely sensitive to everything. I did not expect this. Do you have any insights? So what you're describing here is very common, that the more your identity has shifted to being the only one, the one. So less and less are we believing ourselves to be a separate someone alone in the world, realizing we are alone everywhere. only being that exists is me, then the frequency of the body and mind as our identity shifts over. What I mean by identity is who you really know yourself to be. So not a thought process, what you have seen and seen and seen. And the frequency of the body and mind begins to shift, to become more peaceful, more quiet, more harmonious. The mind begins to quieten down. But where it is still talking, it's talking in the old way, isn't it? It's talking about people and things that don't exist outside of you, separate to you. And because you've seen so clearly who you actually are and where you are everywhere, this old way of thinking becomes incredibly unbearable. For me, it was like fingernails down a chalkboard. So the reason for that is because the overall frequency of your body and mind used to be here when you thought you were a separate being, and now it's gone right up to here for the most part. Of course, we experience fluctuations day to day, but the old way of thinking is right down here still. And there's a huge gap in the frequency of the thoughts that still pop up and the frequency of you overall. Not you, the infinite self, because you're formless, you're not vibrating. The body and mind are a vibration. And you can feel this utter discord, this huge gap. When you thought you were someone, you were here and it was fine. But these same old thoughts now are so far out of where you normally hang out. And this is a consequence of waking up to the truth. That's a good thing, though. It feels awful when it's happening, because every tiny little thing, the slightest irritation or annoyance that you used to live with on a daily basis and not even notice, suddenly becomes like, ooh, I don't like that feeling. So it has to become like this, because as you get more peaceful, more and more free, or living freer, because you're already free, and bliss and peace and all of those fun stuff start to happen, there's less and less impetus to actually continue to evolve. So it actually does you a favor that this stuff really feels icky, because it's going to drive you and to completely empty yourself out, like we were just doing, to live like that effortlessly 24/7, where mind may talk, but you don't automatically put attention on it. You can't even automatically put attention on it, on the thought just pops up, and you can't grab a hold of it with your attention and really experience that thought. The thought just pops up and you're here, and the thought goes away and you're here, and the thought comes up and you're here. So it has to be like this because of this increasing gap. And then your thoughts becoming more and more about being this one being, and they'll come up here as you eliminate more and more what the separation thinking. So anything that you're suffering from at all now is really irritation, annoyance, things like that, even deep hurts. They're always involving two things, you and other. Me and this fear I don't want to feel. Me and this other being I'm having an argument with. Me and the money that I want or need. Me and the peace that seems to have gone. It's always two things wherever we're suffering. And there is nothing so much as two things. There are not two substances. The universe and the infinite self are synonyms. One is when it's appeared in manifestation. The other is when it's invisible and intangible, but they are the same thing. So looking at why you're suffering, it's where you're splitting yourself, in your imagination at least, because you've never actually managed to do that, where you're splitting yourself into two, and that has become so far under where you normally hang out that it just feels terrible. But that's going to push you all the way. And I'm talking from my own experience here. What it feels like is you're living this very roller coaster, and there's so much peace and silence and stillness, and then this thing pops up, and it's just immediately this a very hellish world separation experience, a lot of suffering. That's going to make sure you go all the way. You're not going to rest on your laurels. because you've seen who you are and you want that completely, totally, effortlessly, continuously, that experience. Empty, 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 peace, 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 peace. Mind can say anything from there. And you don't even divide yourself into you and thoughts. You're not even going to do that. You don't know what this thing is that's popped up in your head. You're free. Also, forget unity and forget separation. Forget duality and non-duality, those concepts. Just throw it all out completely. Truth and illusion, throw them out. The concepts, I mean, and see what happens. Okay, I'll read one more and then I'll come to the questions here. I'd like to ask about creativity and writer's block, please. I've been writing fiction for years, but I've never managed to complete anything. I would describe my current situation, writing-wise, as having writer's block. I'm in a complete slump. I feel like I'm trying to drive with the brakes on. I'm not working at the moment, and I'm caring full-time for an elderly parent. Obviously, the caregiving is time-consuming, but I do still get sufficient time to myself, in which I feel like I should be able to write. It is awful to feel that even when I'm not under pressure due to a job, I still cannot write. Last year, I signed up for a 6-month novel writing course, which went really well. But after the course finished, my writing gradually dwindled to nothing. The cycle keeps repeating. I get stuck and languish for a long while and gradually get going with the writing again, but then I run out of steam and stop completely. Although the obvious goal is to finally complete my novel, for quite a while now, I've realized that there is something more important to me than completing my project. And that something is to really get back in touch with the sense of creativity and imaginative flow that I had as a child. Most of the years I've been writing as an adult, I felt like I'm really having to force myself to churn the words out. And although I can do that, it often feels like a really grim task. Feels like I'm having to lean on willpower alone. Right now, even the thought of continuing with the novel makes me feel dread rather than joy. At times I wondered whether my desire to write is a false desire of ego, formed long before I started on a spiritual path, but in all honesty, I think my desire to write and create does genuinely come from my true self. I'm sure that what I'm experiencing is self-sabotage. It feels like I'm blocked, like there's a river of creativity inside me that is dammed up, and I cannot access it. I'm well aware that my ego has turned into this into a problem that needs to be solved. I'm guessing the answer is to let go and stop trying to fix it. However, when I contemplate letting go of the problem, that feels like another kind of self-betrayal, as though I'm abandoning some really heartfelt true desire. Again, I'm guessing that there is some kind of fear that's stopping me from doing what I would love to do. If I could squeeze in a closely related question, I know you've written several books, and if you care to share, I would love to know whether you created a regular writing routine and wrote whether you felt like it or not, or whether you only write when you feel that the moment is right, when you are inspired. Well, let me answer that last bit because I'll probably answer all of it. I decided I wanted to write some books and sat down to write the first book ever that I'd written. Dissolving the Ego was the first book I ever wrote. And I sat down to write and absolutely nothing happened. Nothing came. And I went through the same process that you've been describing here, forcing myself to write and then erasing a whole page of stuff because it was just utter nonsense. And it didn't come from that deep place inside, that unknown place, the place of not knowing. It came from some manufactured version of that. And I couldn't live with that. It had to be. And little by little, this inspiration, this movement, there'd be this time when I knew this is a time to write. And sometimes it'd be weeks apart at first. And I'd only write 2 lines. And then I had to stop. And I began to respect this creative flow. And I only wrote then anything at all, still do now, when I felt like I want to. How do I know when I want to? Well, my body goes and sits down at the keyboard and does some writing. Doing a lot of writing currently for our graduate program, our community. For those that are taking the Dissolving the Ego course, in the graduate program, we're doing a book study. We're studying all the classic scriptures, and I'm writing commentaries. I'm writing a lot, more than I ever have. But it's coming from this place where there's no schedule, no reason for doing it, no should or shouldn't. Anytime I sat down to write from a place of I should write, it ground to a halt. It does not work. You said yourself, what's more important even than finishing your book is reconnecting with that creative joy and passion that you had as a child, where as a child you wrote something because you wanted to or because it was fun, for no other reason than that. A really good question to ask is, why am I doing this? And if it's coming from I should write now that I've got time, it's never going to work, especially the more awakened you get. You can't drive the infinite self from the older motivations of should and shouldn't. It just will not move. It will only come forth from joy or a sincere urge to write for no reason at all. So every book I ended up writing, I didn't write it to publish it in the end. Afterwards, I realized, these are we could publish these. But whilst I was writing them, in fact, many of them got written over 2 years. The Hamilton Gita got written over 2 years. And it was just scribbled in my journal section by section. And when I went back and looked, I realized there was an actual book here. But this is in 3 or 4 different journals, because every morning I'd just write in my journal. So find out why you're doing it. And only write when you feel you want to. For no other reason, not to sell books, not even to be a writer, not to make money, no other reason at all. Go back to that and see what happens. You'll find so much creativity coming so fast, your hands won't be able to keep up on the keyboard. And you'll have to get like 6 people to proofread because you've just missed out entire words in this rush to get everything written down. Self only moves by inspiration and joy, nothing else. Okay, so we'll go to Shri Vidya first.
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm well, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Firstly, I just want to ask you this. Are you always this calm, even at the dinner table with your kids?
Oh no, this afternoon I was proper grumpy. Like really, I was stuck in traffic. And we were supposed to be doing some work, Claire and I. I was utterly peaceful, but really quite grumpy as well. I was getting, but it was a delightful experience to be grumpy. I know that might sound strange, but it was like, wow, this is kind of fun.
Because I always wonder, maybe when I get more enlightened, I will become calm like Helen.
Calm and. I mean, I don't get, I think the worst thing I've felt in a while is a little, grumpy obviously today, but annoyance, irritation, something like that. It's been a very long time since I had a real negative emotion, really. But if it came up, it would just be, if that happened, it wouldn't be rejected. It would just be, today I'm being sad, or today I'm scared, or it would just be part of what's happening, no different to anything else.
Okay.
So peace and, not peace or.
Got it.
Huge key there, right?
Embracing everything.
Peace is always available if we embrace everything. And then peace becomes the dominant thing, the calmness, the silence. And then what's going on in the emotions and thoughts, it's just happening on the periphery of our experience.
So I hope you don't judge me for this, but I
can't judge you. I can't judge you.
I sat in a meditative, I sat for a session, and so I keep asking, and so I'm new to this, so I keep asking a lot of questions. I keep asking myself, what is love? Show me the feeling of love. And love never shows up when I say I can see the boundaryless, it has no boundaries. I see that it has no time. I see the where are you? It's everywhere. I see all that, but the love part alone, I cannot. I did not experience it. But when I sat for a meditative session yesterday, it was really it was a kind of a sexual energy. It was extremely intimate. It was intimate energy. I could feel the heartbeat. The body was responding. I was aware of it.
Yeah.
It was a good feeling. I don't know if this was all done by my mind or if it was to answer one of my questions of love. Did something happen there in terms of my heart chakra opening? Because I could feel the palpitations in my heart. I could feel the sacral chakra. It was a very different, intimate experience. It was intimate, sexual, and loving. It was confusing.
So yeah, I mean, I remember the first time I really did a meditation in a group with people, and I started getting this really strong sexual desire. Not for any particular person in the room. It was just starting, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like, I mean, everyone's quiet and really everyone looks really zen, and this feeling's coming up, and I'm right about at that point where I think I'm going to have to leave the room here in a minute, but there's something in me just sort of said, no, just embrace this, just let this happen. And luckily I went with that, and it moved up through the chakras, and there was this sort of outpouring of energy through the heart center and opening of the heart chakra, like you were saying. What my mind said was that I was having a heart attack, because there was all of these palpitations, and of course, if you're worried about it, go see the doctor. Got to say that, but it was stuck in the lower chakras because there was some fear and unworthiness that was really just kind of blocking my heart center. And when I'd looked at that, it began to move upwards. So you can quite often feel it as sexual desire. Of course, there's nothing wrong with sex and sexual desire. But you're going to have a hard time feeling it as romantic love or even spiritual kind of love if it's stuck in those lower centers. And it's usually because the chakra above it is closed or blocked a little bit, usually by fear, some kind of fear or something like that.
So how do I open the heart chakra? Or it happens with time?
But both, you can ask that question, what is love? That is a really good question that I sat with for a long time. But to understand if love is infinite, if it is the infinite field of all possibilities, then all I can really know is how it's showing up right now. So right now, love is showing up as sexual desire. Well, not right now, but then, right now it's showing up as this question and this answer. So you can sit with this. What else is love? What else can it appear as? And you make in that openness of a question, the energy centers, the body, the chakras just kind of relax and open, because there's no fear then. It's a fear that kind of blocks the system.
Okay. And part B, another question to that is, I've been doing a lot. I've started doing a lot of self-inquiry, and I feel very relaxed and I feel sleepy. I feel very sleepy. Either just before I start or after I finish, I'm like, I just want to sleep. Or every time I think of, is it a hindrance that from the mind, or is it basically, or what do I do? Because I want to use that. I want to
sleep. Is it like the moment I'm going to do some self-inquiry, gone? Or
sometimes during, sometimes after.
During and after is usually, if it happens before, it's usually resistance, avoidance. Mind doesn't want to look at it. So suddenly, one moment you're fine, and then you decide you're going to do some self-inquiry and gone, During and after, what you can find is that the body becomes very relaxed, very quiet. The mind stops And the only time we've experienced that normally is when we're asleep. So the moment we sort of move away from the thought field, the body goes, oh, it must be bedtime. And because it's the only time usually we experience no thought at all. Or very, very brief moments in our deep meditation when we sort of touch at first upon no thought at all. So it's usually that the mind is thinking that it's bedtime, or this is what happens when we go to sleep. And being without any thoughts at all in our self-inquiry, being free, having that experience of freedom, it is very relaxing. The body's normally like this because it's experiencing our thoughts about ourselves. And it's full of fear usually. So when we finally step away from that, the body just kind of, like, yeah. So you get used to it after a while, and you can begin to function in states that other people would fall asleep in. Just so relaxed, like we were saying, very calm, peaceful. Most people would pass out and fall asleep. You're just kind of, well, this is normal now. Before we're like, appear with our thoughts, you know.
And one last question. I'm sorry, I don't want to take too much time, but
Real quick.
I have, yeah. So right now I'm in the isolated stage where I'm alone. So when I go into the deep meditation, I talk to myself in the sense that I tell like a friend, like somebody I want to talk to. I know it's a place of silence, but sometimes I would like to share my experiences or ask questions. Is that, or does it involve the mind there? Am I involving my mind there?
Does it feel good or does it feel bad?
Sometimes it goes overboard and I can feel it. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm growing restless here.
So you can see the self starts the process, the ego grabs a hold of it and continues. Right.
Okay.
So you can sort of feel this was open and free, and now it's kind of feeling a little bit tight and, you know, constrictive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I appreciate your patience.
Thank you. Lena, when you're ready. Hi.
Hello, Helen. Hello, everyone. Oh, sweetheart, Srividya, it was very funny questions. I thoroughly enjoyed them. Thank you. And I want to share that I was sleepy also, especially Helen, my dear Helen, and your satsang. Like I was needed to take anti-sleeping pills because I just couldn't. And I was completely fine just 5 minutes before. But yeah. I think, yes, the relaxing your voice, and not only voice, but your energy is making
we just get used to letting go. We just get used to letting
we
go.
let go of everything, and we just listen to you. And yes, I was needed to put some sticks into my
total
eyes.
not doing, isn't it? I'm just here and I'm just listening. And in that, there's just this, oh, this is nice. Yeah.
Yes, and it's enjoyable and beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. You're wonderful.
Thank you.
I have an interesting question, and at least to me. So my question would be about cause and effect. While I totally got it, and it's very helpful, I still confused about physical body. It feels to me that the cause and effect exist on the material level. And this is why exactly we confuse, because we are identifying ourselves on other physical bodies. For example, physical body needs some condition, like physical body needs food, right? No food, our bodies suffer. No sleep, body suffering. So with C, I purely see cause and effect. And what do you think about it?
If this is a body, it needs things, doesn't it? But if this isn't a body, if I don't know what this is, does cause and effect still exist?
For the body, yes, I completely understand.
Does it really though? Let's look a little deeper.
Yes.
If I don't know what this is, if the concept of body has left my vicinity, physical body gone, it's still here, but I don't know what it is,
Okay.
then surely also with the concept body must go birth, death, sleep, hunger, illness, age, time. All of those have to disappear with the concept of body too. They're actually synonymous together. And the concept of body, the thought, the label body, has so many other things hanging on it. It's one of the reasons why we give it such validity. I'm not talking about this actual thing here. I'm talking about the word body. Because then if I really buy the word body, then all other thoughts start to come into play about how much sleep I need, how much food I need, all of it, right? Every single disease and illness label comes into play, age, time, everything. But if you don't know what this is, if you've forgotten what it is, whilst experiencing it and embracing it and loving it, but you don't actually know what it is, everything else has to go with that too. Because then you're not disembodied or embodied, even that has to go.
Okay, so I will sit there and I will don't know anything is beautiful. However, a little bit while my body will ask for food.
Yeah. And your body will get up and eat. But you don't have to, it's not the concept body that's driving that process, or you don't even have to know what food is to eat it. You don't even have
But
to
I
know
will
what
still
sleep
eat
is.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, Helen, I kind of didn't understand. While again, I understand this concept of cause and effect, but it feels to me that it's belong to our noumenon, our spirit. And yes, I completely understand we are one. Actually, what I think that we are noumenon, but we totally experiencing ourselves through our physical body. No, totally, maybe too much, partially.
If we really know that we are one, if we really know there's only one, right? If we really know that, then everything we perceive must be seen to be that noumenon, that consciousness, that awareness. Otherwise, we don't really know the oneness. We know two-ness. There's noumenon and body, noumenon and sleep, and food, and. People say, I really know, I've really seen that I'm everywhere, and then they still believe this is a body, you see.
But yes, I see. I believe in that we are noumenon, that we are one, but at the same moment we have our body, and our body is the expression of noumenon.
Yeah, I would suggest really deeply investigating. Do you still have a body? If you know what the noumenon is, that it's everywhere and that it is all things, appearing as all things, is there still a body? I'd really spend some time with that. Because you're trying to resolve something in oneness by using a dualistic concept. It cannot be done.
Thank you. And we are one. What do you mean exactly?
There is only one substance. There isn't such a thing as the self, the infinite self, and the word and or has to fall away from your vocabulary. I mean, yes, your mouth still says it, but for me, whatever word I use, ever, I could speak for the rest of eternity in any language, and any word that I would use would be a synonym for the noumenon, the consciousness, the infinite self. It would have the same meaning inside and same feeling inside.
Mm-hmm.
Right now,
Yeah,
you're still believing in the fact that there's a body, and that's very normal, very normal. It was the biggest concept for me to get rid of completely too.
Yes, to me, it kind of was understandable when you said that we are noumenon and we are body, we are one. That was for me understandable, and maybe right now
Well,
you're saying
Where is that place inside you where the word noumenon and the word body mean the same thing and are experienced the same way inside? Right now, if you don't think about your body, you'll experience it as the noumenon. Free, light, empty, open. If you think of the concept body, you'll experience the concept of body. And then it'll feel heavy and dense and solid. Spend some time with that and really investigate and see. Yeah. And then every label that's hanging on this concept body will just disappear with it. And the cause and effect thing will really make sense then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. Okay, Caro, last but not least.
Hello, Helen.
Hi.
First, I want to say thanks to you and all the team for all the help that I have received in the last weeks. For me, it was the most beautiful gift that I have received.
I am very blessed to have the most amazing team of beings around me. They're just angels in human form.
Yes, and thanks for everything. And also, I want to share something with you because I start with the course Dissolving Ego. And when I feel something, I start with the self-inquiry. Sometimes I did it for many hours. I wake up at 3 and I start until 5, 6, 7 in the morning. Just when I don't look the answer, doesn't matter. Just I ask the question what I feel. That
Are you falling in love with questions?
No. I ask the question because maybe something is not good inside, and then I ask the question until I feel okay.
Okay.
Just that.
Okay. That's fine. Yeah.
I don't mind the answer. Also, sometimes I don't wait for the answer. Just I conscious about the question, and doesn't matter the answer for me. Just
and the suffering stops when you ask the question.
Yes, but sometimes after many hours, no. But yes, but before I had a lot suffering. Now it's like this, less. But I start before I had a lot suffering, but now it's like I don't feel peace. I feel a little bit missing in the middle of something that maybe if I one step, I can't be like before. But I don't feel to be with this kind of peace that I really want, that I really am. But for me, it's very difficult to believe that maybe I am this or everything can change.
Let's do it now. Let's do it right now. Yeah.
Okay.
So, is peace actually missing right now? Let's go with that question. Is it true peace is absent? And everyone can join in on this that wants to. It seems like peace is absent, and I really want to know this. What happens when I actually ask if it's absent rather than just assuming?
I feel resistance.
Yeah, it's fine. Just staying with the question. Is it really true peace is absent?
I still have this resistance.
And what else are you experiencing?
Like contraction
Yeah.
in my heart.
Anything else you're experiencing?
Maybe like I refuse something. Like okay, I feel, for example, like the piece is here.
Let's just go back into the question. Let's not go out here with mind.
Mhm.
Is it really true peace is absent? Don't try hard, just relax. Just asking the question. You don't need to make any answers appear. We're just asking the question. And then just watching what your experience is. Is it true that I have to find peace or get peace? What's happening now? Peace, right? Can you see that in your attempt to get it or find it, you're starting from the assumption that it's not here because it isn't immediately obvious in our experience. We're starting from the assumption that peace is absent. And the very moment we buy that, we're creating our own disturbance. And we have to try to find it or get it. At the moment we just ask, just ask the question, you start smiling. Yeah. So you are so powerful as the infinite self. The moment you think something is absent, it will be. Immediately, instantaneously, continuously disturbing myself with this idea that peace isn't here. Continuously disturbing myself with this idea that peace is absent. So we have to kind of, okay, I see how powerful I am. Let me just reset and ask, is it actually here? Let me start afresh. Control, Alt, Delete, and reboot. Is it actually absent? And then you just wait and see. And within about 30 seconds of that, you were smiling again. Yeah. Before you were like, I have to make it appear. Even though you were asking a question, you were kind of like, I have to do something here. Yeah. So you ask your question and then you put your feet up and you eat your popcorn and you watch what happens. Yeah. Popcorn's optional, but you get the idea. I'm just like you would watch a movie. You don't have to make the movie happen. You're just watching. Yeah. So peace, here's the thoughts here. Here's the trying and the contraction in the body. And here's the peace underneath. So you just ask the question and you sift through lower and lower, deeper into your experience, into where the peace always is. You stop trying so hard to find peace, you sink down into it anyway. Yeah. So just the question, no doing with it, no doing at all. Right? Instant peace then, every single time. Peace and whatever else is going on, sadness, fear, jealousy, whatever. Peace, always, peace is always available. But if we're skimming across the top of our experience, just experiencing our thoughts, then I need to find peace. You're like running across the surface of this moment, like one of those pond skaters, you know, those little insects that just skate across the water. And there's this big ocean underneath it, and it never experiences it. Ocean of peace, and it's skating across the surface. So you're going to dive in with the question. That's all, just a question.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. So that's a good place to leave it for this evening. Let me just stop this for a moment. Thank you. Namaste.